Today, we're diving into an incredibly powerful tale of survival and resilience. Join me as we explore the real-life story of someone who overcame the unimaginable after being held captive for 5 years, beginning at the tender age of 7. This happened when I was 7 and I'm 25 now. I remember it like it was yesterday. School was finally over and I was so excited to go home because my aunt was visiting. As I was happily dancing my way through, a car had stopped by. I turned around and the man introduced himself as Nick, and that he was my aunt's friend. My aunt had plenty of friends, including one named Nicholas, but at that time I mistaked it for Nick, so I believed him. He said how my aunt told him to come pick me up and left some presents inside for me. I was only 7, and I was taught about stranger awareness at that age. But what can I say? I was too naive, and so I agreed to go inside his car. The second I've got into his car, I instantly had a gut feeling that something was wrong and that this wasn't going to be too good for me. And what can I say? I was right. Only that it wasn't too good, it was horrid. That's when it all went downhill. He had took me in the middle of nowhere and handcuffed me, as well as putting duct tape over my mouth. I dreaded whenever he'd come into the room. It was always some type of abuse. He'd pull me by my hair and smash my head against the wall so much so that it would bleed. He'd tell me how he'd dismember my body and fuck it, then throw it for the pigs to feast. He'd make me cook and clean, and I couldn't refuse. He would leave a radio in my room. I was mostly grateful for that, because somehow, by the grace of God, he allowed me to listen to the news. Every day I prayed that they'd find me and rescue me from this hellhole. I tried committing suicide, but there was only one thought from the back of my mind, and that was my family. I still clinged on to the hope that a miracle would appear, and I'd be back living a normal life. I missed my family. I missed Uncle Hendrik getting drunk and performing a puppet show for us. I missed my grandmother making me my favorite cheese sandwich. I missed my siblings and I teaming up and jumping on our parents' bed until it broke and we all fell through it. Just writing about it makes me tear up. And then when I was 12, that's when I finally had enough of it. I noticed how he had trouble sleeping, used sleeping pills. I decided that I'd put the pills inside the soup I'd cook for him on a daily basis. It was sure to keep him asleep, at least for an hour or two, which was more than enough time for me to escape. And it worked. I took his phone and called the police. The way I knew the location is when I heard him say it, so I wrote it down in case I'd forget it. The police were shocked and got there in a matter of time. He was arrested, and I was free. When I called my mother, she started screaming, "We found her!" And when we finally met face to face, there were lots of hugs and kisses. My siblings all jumped on me, and they didn't want to let go. I swear they held me so tightly, they could have strangled me. It was so good to sleep in my own room again. I literally kissed the walls of my house, went in every single room, just to remind myself of how lucky I am to be back. When I entered school, everyone had gone bonkers, and I was known as the warrior girl for surviving in some bizarre conditions. As for my captor, well, it took 7 officers to get my father and my mother off of him, because they genuinely believed that they would decapitate him with no hesitation. My mother told me how he was crying the whole time and apologizing. In my opinion, he wasn't sorry for causing me so much agony and trauma, but instead, he was sorry he had to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Justice was served because he was sentenced to 456 years in prison, and I hope the inmates give him a nice ass-whapping there. I'm doing great now. I've fully recovered and have gone to therapy. I've started my own company, and I guess you could say I'm pretty well off. I'm also engaged to this incredible man named Trevon, who is my source of strength and has been very supportive of me. My family and I are closer than ever, and we rarely ever mention what had happened, since we just want to leave it in the past and forget about it completely. So that's my story, everyone. To all of you, put there, who have been abducted or taken away, I would just like to tell you that you are strong and that there's always a rainbow ahead of you, waiting to arise. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening to this incredible story of resilience and hope. Remember, strength comes from within, and no matter what you face, there's always a path to recovery and a brighter future ahead.